Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityurma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my talk today is life after death. The subject is very interesting because this subject has kept the philosophers living forever. This is not my observation, but it is an observation of a philosopher, very well-known philosopher, Bertrand Russell. So he said that this is the subject which keeps this subject alive forever. Now to start with, I would like to share with you two stories. As you know, we have a general belief from the childhood that after our death we shall go to some place. If we do good deed, then we shall go to heaven, and if we do not do good deed, then actually we shall go to hell. That is a general statement that is instilled in our mind from the childhood, because that is understandable probably in a child's mind. But there are ramifications of this life and death, and that has been explored, and also solutions have been found out. So we shall discuss about that. So let me start with a story. We all seek happiness. That is the purpose of life. It has been said in our constitution that in the Declaration of Independence on 4th July 1776, it is said that Jefferson first wrote the pursuit of life, pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. This should be the everybody should pursue that. But before that, he had written life, liberty, and pursuit of wealth. That was his original draft, but later on he changed to happiness, because that is the universal crave of all human beings. So we pursue happiness and we expect that we shall be happy in our life, and also probably we shall remain happy after we die also. So there is a story, the story is like that. A widow was eager to know how her departed husband was doing. She consulted a medium who put her in communication with her husband. Peter, she asked, "Are you happy now?" Peter answered, "I am very happy." The widow continued, asked, "Are you happier than you were on earth?" "Earth with me." Peter promptly replied, "Yes, I am far happier than I was on earth with you." Then the widow inquired, "Tell me, Peter, what is it like in heaven?" "Heaven," cried Peter, "I am not in heaven." He was in hell and found it more comfortable than earth. So sometimes it happens that we think that what is called life on earth is really like living in a hell. So we try to escape that. Now there is a lengthier story, probably most of you find it, you will be able to relate with that. One day, while walking down the street, a highly successful executive was tragically hit by a bus and he died. His soul arrived up in heaven, where he was met at the pearly gates by St. Peter himself. "Welcome to heaven," said St. Peter. "Before you get settled in, it seems we have a problem. You see, strangely enough, we have never once had an executive make it this far, and we are not really sure what to do with you. No problem, just let me in, said the man. Well, I would like to, but I have higher orders. What we are going to do is let you have a day in hell and a day in heaven. And then you can choose whichever one you want to spend an eternity in. Actually, I think I have made my mind. I prefer to stay in heaven, said the man. Sorry, we have rules. And with that, St. Peter put the executive in an elevator, and it went down and down to hell. The doors opened, and he found himself stepping out onto the putting green on a beautiful golf course. In the distance was a country club, and standing in front of him were all his friends, fellow executives, and he had worked with, and they were all nicely dressed and cheering for him. They ran up and greeted him, and they talked about old times. They played an excellent round of golf, and at night went to the country club, where he enjoyed an excellent steak and lobster dinner. He met the devil, who was actually a really nice guy, and he had a great time telling jokes, etc. He was having such a good time that before he knew it, it was time to leave. Everybody shook his hand and waved goodbye as he got into the elevator. The elevator went up, and went back up at the pearly gates and found St. Peter waiting for him. Now it's time to spend a day in heaven, he said. So he spent the next 24 hours lounging around on clouds and playing the harp and singing. He had a great time, and before he knew it, his 24 hours were up, and St. Peter came and got him. So you have spent a day in hell and you have spent a day in heaven. Now you must choose your eternity, he said. The man paused for a second and then replied, well, I never thought I would say this. I mean, heaven has been really great and all, but I think I had a better time in hell. So St. Peter escorted him to the elevator, and again he went down back to hell. When the doors of the elevator opened, he found himself standing in a desolate wasteland covered in garbage and filth. He saw his friends were dressed in rags and were picking up the garbage and putting it in sacks. The devil came up to him and put his arm around him. I don't understand, stammered the man. Yesterday I was here and there was a golf course and a country club and we ate lobster and had a great time. Now all there is a wasteland of garbage and all my friends look miserable. The devil looked at him and smiled. Yesterday we were recruiting you. Today you are our staff. Probably those who are executive and have passed to this type of ordeal, they know the truth about this. All right, these are the stories. The point is that we have some ideas about the heaven and hell and afterlife. That is the most important thing. Now coming to an observation, that means what is the rational way of thinking about heaven and hell that is important for us to know. Swami Vivekananda actually gave a talk on life and the laws of life and death. And it was not too far from where he had given that talk. That is in Auckland actually he had given this talk. It was on March 7th, 1900. Unfortunately, the talk as it is not available, but one newspaper reporter noted it down and it was published with editorial comments in Oakland Tribune. So Swami Vivekananda delivered a lecture last evening, as it is said, the laws of life and death. Rationality, that means, these are imaginative. The stories, these are stories that are always floating down, we enjoy it. Sometimes we despise them, sometimes we become thoughtful about them, sometimes when time comes, actually we do not know what to do, that is the point. Or we cannot think what will happen to us when the actual time will come to depart. So these are very serious things also, that is the point. So we have to be very rational, that means in what way actually we can grasp what may happen or what will happen when we die. So how to get rid of this birth and death? Not how to go to heaven, but how one can stop going to heaven. This is the object of research of the Hindu. So he is saying that Hindus also believe in heaven and hell, but those who are rational, that those who are serious, they will think in this way that, well, these two things are there, but I want to get something which is really above that. That means whether we can avoid the both places, that is the point. So the Swami went on to say that nothing stands isolated. This is the rational point. Everything is a part of the never-ending procession of cause and effect. If there are higher beings than man, they also must obey the laws. That's the point. If there is something above, that means beyond our what is called observation, or beyond our sight, if you call it, if it is inside something, that means a system, then actually they are following the same rules that we are following. We may not see them, we don't perceive them, we may not know them now, or whatever it may be, but if they are within the system, then they must be following the same laws. Life can only spring from life, thought from thought, matter from matter. A universe cannot be created out of matter. It has existed forever. If human beings came into world fresh from the hands of nature, they would come without impressions. This is a very important what is called aspect to think over. That means we all come with some impressions in our mind. That is why we are different. If we are really robots, that means without any input from previous what is called previously trained or previously absorbed something, actually we should be same. That means our mind will be the same, but our minds are not really same. That is evident. But we do not come in that way, which shows that we are not created afresh. If human souls were created out of nothing, what is to prevent them from going back to nothing? That is the point. If we have come out of nothing, then we shall go back to nothing. But we do not go in that way. That is our perception. If we are to live all the time in the future, we must have lived all the time in the past. That is also a very strong argument. If we have to live forever somewhere, so naturally we have lived forever somewhere. Forever, sense of forever means eternity. Eternity is half future, half past, and it is not only half future, it has another half in the past also. So we have lived all through. That is the point. So we cannot say that we shall live forever in the future. It is the belief of the Hindu that the soul is neither mind nor body. What is it which remains stable, which can say, I am I? Not the body, for it is always changing. Not the mind, which changes more rapidly than the body, which never has the same thoughts for even a few minutes. That is true. That means we just observe our mind, we see that we are thinking this thought now, another thought next time. In that way, actually, mind is always flickering. That is the difficulty that everybody experiences when we start doing meditation. There must be an identity which does not change, something which is to man what the banks are to the river. The banks which do not change and without whose immobility we would not be conscious of constantly moving stream. That is also a very important aspect of thinking. That means how we are perceiving the change. The change is perceived related to something stationary. And this is observable in the what is called in the river. So banks are steady, that means they are not moving, so you see the water is moving. So in that way, we say that water is moving. The same with the mind. That means there must be some entity which is observing that the mind is changing, body is changing. So there must be some stationary entity, that is the point. Behind the body, behind the mind, there must be something, namely the soul, which unifies the man. So either the soul actually, body, mind and all those things cannot be put in the proper places, that's the point. Mind is merely the fine instrument through which the soul, the master, acts on the body. In India, we say man has given up his body. While you say, that means in this country, this talk was given in Auckland, as you know, Western country, Christian country. So it is said, you say, Swami Vivekananda is saying, a man gives up his ghost. The Hindus believe that a man is a soul and has a body, while Western people believe he is a body and possesses a soul. So this is the contradiction or the different ways of thinking of human being or any being. That means Hindus believe, or you can say in Eastern culture it is like this, that means we have soul and body is what is called, we have the soul actually have the body. But in Western country it is like this, in Christian country and probably Abrahamic religion as it is called, it is believed that body is permanent and the soul actually is like a ghost, it is given up. So that is the difference. Death overtakes everything which is complex. The soul is a single element, not composed of anything else, and therefore it cannot die. But its very nature, the soul must be immortal. By its very nature, the soul must be immortal. That means logically also, that means if something has to stay forever, so it is immortal, that it does not die. Body, mind and soul turn upon the wheel of law, none can escape. No more can we transcend the law than can the stars, than the sun. It is all a universe of law. So taking these inert objects also, as we see, are following the same rule. That means body, mind and inert substances, they follow the same rule. The law of karma is that every action must be followed sooner or later by an effect. The Egyptian seed, which was taken from the hand of a mummy after 5,000 years and sprang to life, when planted, is the type of the never-ending influence of human acts. That means the result will be the same. That means action and results, they will follow each other. Action never dies without producing action. Now, if our acts can only produce these appropriate effects on this plane of existence, it follows that we must all come back to round out the circle of causes and effects. This is the doctrine of reincarnation. That you know that in, as I told you, in Eastern religion, it is quite acceptable. That means we are taught from the childhood or heard from the childhood. Later on, you maybe with logic or something, you may not believe it, but definitely it is in the air that you understand that cause and effect is there. There is reincarnation and all those things. But in this country, because of the Christian or Abrahamic religion, this reincarnation-hood is not that much prevalent, except those who have studied it or given thought it. Now it is said that at least 25% of people in this country also believe in reincarnation because of the logic. That means reason. Now we are all educated, we have education, we can think independently and we can form our own ideas and come to a conclusion. So because of this rationality, people, even though they do not follow the Eastern religion, believe in the reincarnation. We are the slaves of law, the slaves of conduct, the slaves of thirst and the slaves of desire, the slaves of 1,000 things. Only by escaping from life we can escape from slavery to freedom. God is the only one who is free. God and freedom are one and the same. This is a very short report of the talk that he has given, but we can conclude that ultimately there is a way from reaching which actually we can escape this what is called life and anything up which is beyond life. So the point is that if we have to escape this thing, we have to escape birth also. That means afterlife also. That is the most what is called intrigue. It intrigues us. That means we have to give up our life also. That means there is no next life is not there. That is also a thoughtful aspect of this observation. Now let us see a little bit how actually mind, body and all those things are related according to our Vedantic concept. It is said that we have our mind, it is called, Krishna has said, that means in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has said, whosoever at the time of death leaves his body remembering me alone and goes forth, he attains my being, concerning there is no doubt. So Krishna, we think God, so naturally those who are thinking about him and at the same time giving up the body actually will come to me, that's why they will escape a rebirth as it is called, that means they will not be born again. Escaping not only worldly life, or escaping the heavenly life also, if there is hellish life, that is also, and ultimately escape all these three vagaries, if you call it, that everyone passes through. For whatever object a man thinks of, he is saying how actually it happens. He is saying, for whatever object a man thinks of at the final moment, when he leaves his body, that alone does he attain, being ever absorbed in the thought thereof. So the mechanism is like this: at the time of death, whatever we are thinking, actually that we become like that. And some substance is like that. So if you think of Godhead, we shall be like that. If you think of animal, we shall become like that. In that way, actually, Lord Krishna is saying it happens. Therefore, at all times, constantly remember me and fight. Fight means do work for the world, whatever you are doing. With your mind and intellect absorbed in me, you will surely come to me. Ultimately, this is the assurance that Lord Krishna gave to Arjuna, and it is the message for us also. Now the point is this: by the term all the times, by using the term all the times and constantly, he implies practice and discipline covering one's whole life. The point is this: sometimes we think that, well, death will come at some time, at that time we shall think of God, and then actually we shall go, what is called, reach him. So that may be, that we may plan like this, but for the moment actually, or the time that we have, we are good in health, we have the opportunities, actually we enjoy whatever is available. That is what is called common way of thinking, but it doesn't happen. It is said that there are some people who read these and similar verses in the Gita and begin to argue. Oh, after all, one has only to remember God at the last moment of life. Why bother about him now? Such arguments are what is called irresponsible, for the mind can be expected to do things spontaneously only when it has been previously drilled and trained. So this is a very important part. That means what we think actually we shall be constantly thinking, and deep impressions actually will come at the time of death. We shall not be able to escape those thoughts at the time of death. That is the point. So this rule is especially applicable to the thoughts in the dying moments, when all worldly attachments conspire to drag the mind down to the body. There are examples. Sri Ramakrishna has also told stories about that. That a person was dying, very ordinary person. That means family-oriented person. So at the moment of death, as you know that, as it has been said that one should think of God, but instead of that, what he did, because he saw that the lamp is burning little high, that means it was very bright. So he said that turn of the lamp a little low. Then in that way, his thoughts were on the worldly plane. That is the point. And also there are stories in this way. That is very celebrated story. That means one worldly person. Worldly means an extremely worldly person. He never thought of God. but he had kept the name of God for one of his sons. That means one son was named Narayana. Narayana means Lord Krishna's name or Lord Vishnu's name. In that way he named. So he was very fond of that child. So at the time of death, actually he was afraid of dying and darkness and all those things. So out of fear, actually he uttered the name of his son, Narayana. And actually that is God's name. And then it is said, the story says that because he uttered the name at the last moment of his life, he actually escaped life and death. That means he became immortal. So these are the stories that are there. Now the point is this, that this doesn't happen to everybody. So naturally, as Lord Krishna is saying, always think of me, and in that way he will escape this situation. Now let us see practically what has happened and what is happening. What has happened from the history, whether we can figure out. You know, Sigmund Freud was a very, you can say that he is the father of psychoanalysis and also probably present-day psychology. His influence is really inescapable in the present day. There are three persons that shape the present day: this Freud, then Darwin, and also to some extent Marx. He said that their influence is inescapable in our age. Of course, Marx is slowly, of course it is ups and downs are there, but still sometimes it is not liked, but we cannot say that his influence is really not there, it is there. But Sigmund Freud's influence is still strong and it is still going on, though some psychologists have differed from him, but it is worth knowing how actually he died, because he was a non-believer of God, that is true. Sigmund Freud, on whose contribution modern Western psychology has leaned heavily, wrote a book called The Future of an Illusion, to prove that God was only a magnified image of human parents that man builds up for obtaining gratification and security, which he believes parents give him during childhood. That was his translation of the idea of God. What is God? God is the security that a child seeks at the childhood. In the parents, that means parents, a child does not know anybody except mother or father, mother definitely. So in that way, that is a security. So that impression of security actually is transferred to the idea of God. And it is an illusion. So he said that. So naturally what happened to him, that is the point. He advocated that man should dispense with such an illusion and learn to endure life, however hard it may be, without it. But what about facing death? Freud's own death gave no positive hints about it. It was in fact a pathetic event as depicted by his physician and friend Max Schur. He had a friend who actually, from the young age actually they are friends, he had said, that means Freud told him that at the time of death, please be by my side. So because of friendship or whatever it may be, he said, and he agreed, that he promised that yes, I shall be with you when you die. Taking the hand of the physician at his bedside, Freud said, quote, "My dear Schur, you certainly remember our first talk. You promised me that not to forsake me when my time comes. Now it is nothing but torture and makes no sense anymore." So he is suffering. He had what is called cancer in jaw. That means it was very painful. You can imagine any cancer is painful, and jaw you can imagine how actually painful it will be. So he was suffering from that, and definitely the friend was very trusted friend, so he was by his side. So they conversed, and Freud said this in this way. Schur assured his patient that he had not forgotten. That means he has promised, so he is with him. He further says in his book, that means Schur actually wrote a book about the death of Freud, and the book's name is Freud, Living and Dying. So quote, "When he was again in agony, I gave him a hypodermic of 2 centigrams of morphine. He soon felt relief and fell into a peaceful sleep. I repeated this dose after about 12 hours. he lapsed into a coma and did not wake up again. Yet, had he cherished the illusion of religion, Freud would have borne the torture manfully and serenely, because it would make great sense even to suffer the agonies of death when one has the strength of religious conviction. So this is the observation of the writer. He is saying that at the time of death, actually, you see, he did not think of God, he did not believe in religion, so he died a painful death with a sense of insecurity. A person has to be by his side to assure him. And not only that, he had to die without consciousness. That means he had to be morphine. That means he had to be given this, kept unconscious. And in that way, actually, he left his body. A person with that glowing faith and conviction on his deathbed stretches his hand to hold that of God and not the hand of a physician who is a mere mortal like himself. So this is the fate, you see, that we see the great psychologist who himself actually did not believe, and at the time of death he had to struggle with his own mind. Now, Swami Vivekananda, you know that he came to the Parliament of Religion, and this is a subject matter, as I told you, of interest to everybody, and that is why this, what is called, these philosophers are surviving. So Swami Vivekananda has expressed this view. What is the view of the Vedanta in the Parliament of Religions? And why? And that actually is very illuminating, and that is very assuring also. Towards the end of his brilliant exposition, one talk that he had gave in Parliament Religion, which is Hinduism, he said this: I see before me, as it were, that in some of those retreats, this question, that means he is saying that in this country people suffer in this way, that means they do not, they all think that they will go to hell. That is, most of the people cannot recount that they have done enough good deeds to go to heaven. Probably ultimately they will go to hell. So that is the permanent botheration of them. So he is thinking of that, as if thinking of that, Swami Vivekananda said, I see before me, as it were, that in some of those forest retreats, this question of the soul's bondage and freedom, that means whether the soul will be permanently in the hell or permanently in heaven, that it will remain, that was discussed, that's the point. It's been discussed by those ancient sages of India, and in one of them, where even the oldest and the holiest fail to reach the solution, a young man stands up in the midst of them and declares. So this is a very well-known verse from the Upanishad. It is said that, here is children of immortality, here ye who live in the highest places. I have found the way. By knowing him who is beyond darkness, we can go beyond death. Srinnantu Vishya Amritasya Putra, Ahe Dhamani Dibbanitastu, Vedahamitam Purusham Mahantam, Aditya Varnam Tamsat Parasta. This is a very old, well-quoted verse from the Upanishad. Now let us see another death. So this is the death has been recorded about Sri Ramakrishna. So how he actually died. You know, Sri Ramakrishna, we respect him as an incarnation of God. Some people will respect him as a spiritual person at least. So in that way, it will be interesting to see how actually he left his body. So Sri Ramakrishna, whom his disciple, that is Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda elsewhere has said, he is the fulfillment of Indian sages and the sage for the time. That means we find the facts stated and demonstrated. That means how actually the Upanishadic words that I translated to you has been exemplified in his life, that he is saying. So he is saying in this way. So let me start. Sri Ramakrishna, well, as you know, let me tell you the background. Towards the end of his life, he also suffered from cancer of throat. Freud, later on, he of course died in 39, Sri Ramakrishna died in 1886. So cancer during this time actually was incurable. Even now it is incurable, almost incurable. So both of them died of the same disease. and Sri Ramakrishna had throat cancer. So, and he hardly could speak, always painful and all those things, but he endured it. That's the point. So treatment was going on. In that way, he was brought to near the Calcutta city. He was in a distant place, and doctors used to look after him. But as you know, there is no cure for that, so he had to endure that. That's the point. So some of the disciples or friends told you that you are a yogi. Sri Ramakrishna was a great spiritual person. He said that why don't you pray to Divine Mother, whom actually you have worshipped and where you have ambition to cure you, and you will get cured. So Sri Ramakrishna said that I cannot bring my mind on my body. That is a difficulty. So he ignored that. Then another Pandit, that means another scholar, said that, well, you do one thing, the yogic way. You don't have to pray to Divine Mother. Just think of that spot where actually the pain is there. That means focus your mind on that, and you'll be cured. Actually, there are there is a school of spiritualists who actually practice that. I was told in one place that means he actually got cured by concentrating the mind on the what is called the spot where he had this cancer or such disease. So whatever it may be, then again Sri Ramakrishna retorted that, well, I cannot really do that because I don't think that body is that much important for me. The mind has been given up. Sri Ramakrishna retorted to that Pandit in this way. You call yourself a Pandit and you can make such a suggestion. This mind has been given up to God once and for all. How can I withdraw it from Him and make it dwell on this worthless body? So this was in this way he retorted. And he did not do any such thing. Then he had another disciple who was a spiritual person. His name is Swami Turiyananda. He actually came to this country and started that Shanti Ashram. Many of us have visited that. So he was a young person at that time, a disciple, and he well read also scriptures. So he said, one day Hari, that means his name, later on he went into vow of monasticism, his name became Swami Turiyananda. So he came near the master's bed and inquired how he was. Young man, so he actually, sick person, wanted to know, how are you? Then Sri Ramakrishna began to complain about the great pain and burning sensation in the throat. But Hari, that means this young man, felt differently. He later said, quote, the more the master complained, the clearer it was to me that I was being tested. Finally, I could not control myself any longer. I burst out, sir, whatever you may say, I see you only as an infinite ocean of bliss. Physically you are saying you have pain, but when I look at you, it seems that you are in bliss. Your appearance, whatever it may be. That is a feeling that he had. At this time, Master said to himself with a smile, this rascal has found me out. One of his biographers graphically described the Mahasamadhi. When a sage passes away, it is not called death, it is called Mahasamadhi, Mahanirman, Parinirvan. That are the technical terms in spiritual literature that is being used in India. So one of his biographers graphically described his Mahasamadhi, or the final Samadhi from which he never came back to earthly consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna very often, that means during the daytime, probably several times he used to go into that higher mode of Samadhi. That means his mind merged into the ultimate reality, but he used to come down also. That mind used to come down. In that way it used to happen. So the final what is called Mahasamadhi, it's called, that means from where actually his mind did not return, that is being described here. So it is like this. Then suddenly a thrill passed through Ramakrishna's body, making its hair stand on end. The eyes become fixed on the tip of his nose. The face smiled. Ramakrishna was in Samadhi. This happened at 2 minutes after 1 o'clock, early on Monday morning, August 16, 1886. That has been described by Christopher Isherwood in his book Ramakrishna and His Disciples. So this is the example of a spiritual person, how actually he lives his body, thinking of the highest or merging his mind into the ultimate reality. Now the point is this, these are the possibilities that has been recorded, that is available to us. So it is up to us what we choose and try ourselves where actually we can, what result we can. Probably we shall not be able to see our result, but there is the possibility to always remain with us. Now, no talk on life and death is complete with the recounting the story of Nachiketa. It is also a part of one of our scripture, Upanishad, which is known as Kathopanishad. The story is like this, that, well, a boy went to the king of death. Allegorical story, but you know, allegorical story also, we believe, that means the Vedas, as it is called, are revealed. That means we cannot escape saying that this is not true. It is true. So in that way it is accepted, because somewhere we have to stand. So these stories are like mantras, that means they are truth as it is. So in that way they are accepted in Vedantic, those who are followers Vedanta. So he went because his father was angry and sent him to the house of death. So he went to what is called the king of death. His name is Yama. Probably something like a person, a funeral director or something like that to call it, imagination. But he was dealt with the dead person. That means he was the dispenser of, just like Saint Peter. That means he had to give, send a person or a soul to hell or heaven or whatever it may be. So in the same way, Yama had that authority according to Indian spiritual literature. So he was busy and he was out of his office for 3 days. And the boy actually waited for him. Waited in a sense that means he was very polite. He said that, oh, the host is not there, so I cannot enter into the house. That is really not appropriate. So I shall wait outside. So there were what is called gatekeepers. They asked him to come, but still he did not go inside. Then as soon as Yama returned, they reported that this boy, young boy, Brahmin boy, he is staying there, did not take any food. I requested them to come inside, but he did not oblige. So Yama himself was very upset, not upset, that means he was very concerned, because he also had to follow the rules of the society, because a guest should not be kept unfed or given a place to stay. That is unthinkable. So he apologized and said that because I have given, I could not treat you properly, I give you 3 boons. Boons means they actually, these spiritual entities or powerful persons, they had, whatever they said actually that used to happen in those days. So he said that you ask for 3 boons and I shall give you. So first boon actually, he said that his father angrily sent him to his Yama's place. So he said that father should be quiet and he should receive me normally without any anguish. So do that to that extent. So he said that yes, your father will be all right and will be received well, and in that way the boon was given. Second boon actually is that he wanted to learn some sacrifice. In those days, different sacrifices. That means there are different types of these fire services were there, by which one is to get the desired objects. So he said that please teach me something by which actually, by performing which one can go to heaven. So that was also taught to him, and Yama is so pleased that his fire service will be branded after him. That means it will be known as Nachiketa fire service. That option was given to him. Third, actually, he asked that, well, please tell me what happens to a person after death. That was the final question. And Yama, you know, gentleman, so he could not really budge. He actually tried to dissuade that person, because you are very young. This type of thoughts should not come to you. You have your life, extended life. You have to enjoy your life. So I gave you so many things, palace, money, damsels, whatever you want. You ask for those things. I shall just, those things will be given to you. But don't ask what will happen to a person after death. But the boy was very adamant. He said that I shall not get such a teacher like you, because it is your subject. That means you deal with these things every day. So you are the most, what is called, most knowledgeable person. I cannot really escape you. So he insisted, and ultimately Yomo, being a gentleman, could not budge also. He said that, well, okay, so I shall teach you. So what he did, actually, he did not tell him directly. But he said, in essence, that means there are things in this earth and heaven which are really transitory. Use such something which actually will give you eternal life. So it is like this. Yomo was pleased with such a young truth seeker who had rejected the path of enjoyment and chose the path of goodness. Enjoyment means, it is said that enjoyment on earth and enjoyment in heaven, they are the same, only the intensity is different. Probably here, what is called, you taste splendor in heaven, actually probably you get sugar. It is like that. That is the intensity. So if not there, yes, then Yoma taught him the knowledge of the Atman, realizing which man attains immortality. So this is the what is called the gist of the teaching that he had given to that young boy. Know the self as Lord of the chariot. An analogy he gave, the body as the chariot itself, the discriminating intellect as charioteer. So you can imagine this picture, the position of the body, position of the mind, and also what is called intelligence. And the mind as reins. Let me repeat. Know the self as the Lord of the chariot. A chariot you can imagine, and self is the Lord. The body as the chariot itself. Discriminating intellect as charioteer, that means driving the chariot, and the mind the reins. In that way actually the chariot is moving. The senses, say the wise, are the horses. Selfish desires are the roads they travel. So in that way the horses are running over the what is called road of desires. When the self is confused with the body, mind and senses, they point out he seems to enjoy pleasure and suffer sorrow. So in that way, when the chariot is moving in this way on the plane of the senses, actually, they enjoy sometimes happiness, sometimes sorrow. In that way it works. The all-knowing self was never born, nor will it die. Beyond cause and effect, this self is eternal. So who is the real person in the chariot? That means he is the self, the Lord of the chariot. He is the self. And he actually is really eternal. He is never born, never died. So when the body dies, the self does not die. One must discriminate the soul from the body, which is the seat of desire. After death, it is the soul that remains, and the soul is immortal. So this is a matter of segregation, a sort of word if you can use, segregating the eternal entity which is residing within us. Segregate from the body and segregate from the mind. It is not difficult to imagine because we are always identifying ourselves with the body. And when you are thinking, actually you are not thinking of the body. That means some thoughts, we are thinking of that place, that this thing happened today, yesterday, we shall do all those things. So we are not thinking of the body. And we are thinking of the mind. Then there is a way that we can really dissociate ourselves from the mind also. So we can think of some object which actually is not in the mind, and in that way we can think. So in that way we can dissociate that aspect of I-ness from the mind also. And there are ways, that means teachers, those who have practiced or those who have left the instructions, in that way actually that is done. And ultimately, again it has been said that it has to be practiced because it has to come at the time of that, what is called memory should come at the time of death. So repeatedly we have to practice that so that we do not forget this at the time of death. And that is the way out. Thus having learned the wisdom of the Brahman from Yoma, Nachiketa was freed from the cycle of births. So that is the solution that has come down. That means this allegory is the teaching which is applicable to everybody. Nachiketa is just a person like us, and the teacher is like Yoma, that means any spiritual teacher who gives the knowledge. And in those days, probably it was very easy to, as soon as the knowledge was given, the knowledge came to the mind. But nowadays, actually, we have to practice it. That means knowledge is given, but repeatedly we have to practice it so that we can hold on to it. Nachiketa has been one of the most influential characters in Hinduism. Indian monk Swami Vivekananda said, "If I get 10 or 12 boys with the faith of Nachiketa, I can turn the thoughts and pursuits of this country in a new channel." In respect of India, actually, he has said that if I get a faithful person, 10 faithful person like Nachiketa, actually the whole country will be changed. That is the power of what is called spirituality. So these are the thoughts that are connected with the life and death. But in some, it is like this: death is there, we cannot escape, and I do not know when it will come, but we should be ready. That means even Christian mystics also have said that, well, we have to remember every day that death is inevitable, and we should do something for that day also. And what to do, that has been said, that I recounted from different stories, that we have to think that we are really not body and mind, and that we should come to that understanding. Then actually you can think of what is the true nature, what is our true nature, and how to achieve that. Then only you can really go beyond life and death. If you want to escape death, we have to escape life also. That is the point. That means repeated birth and death. That is also we have to accept. Then only we can really become free.